everybody, welcome to Evening TV. I'm Evening Ransom. I recently just did a video on how to tell if you're dating a sociopath, right? Well, so in contrast to that, I wanted to do a video on 8 hidden signs of unhealthy narcissism. And I say hidden signs because this is signs that are perhaps hidden and that they're not like really outwardly noticeable to everyone, but this is not covert narcissism, which is in effect sociopathy. Okay, so these are just signs that someone has unhealthy narcissism, but is, has not gone as far as to become a covert narcissist. They aren't a sociopath. They aren't outwardly manipulative. So now what these are also going to be, these will all be traits that are shared with sociopaths. But sociopaths have traits that a narcissist doesn't. Okay? So it's just on this continuum, and you pass up narcissism, unhealthy narcissism, on your way to sociopathy. Okay? So it will have all this. Reverse is not true. So all the things of a sociopath, the narcissist, the unhealthy narcissist doesn't have. Okay? So entitlement, they're all entitled. They're all entitled. They, when you go to split up, you split the sheets, so to speak. The sheets, the bed, the house, everything will be theirs, right? Everything will be theirs. They will think of you as entitled to nothing. No friends. No, in fact, my husband didn't even think I was entitled to keep on breathing. If I wasn't his wife anymore, if he had no more need for me, there was no reason for me to even exist. But outwardly they'll be very generous. Outwardly, it will look nothing like that. They'll pick up the check. They'll, yeah. So domestic tyrant, they are, they're with the highway. They are authoritarian parents. They rule with an iron fist. It's their house, their blah, 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 blah. But never in front of people. In front of other people, they're, just sweet as pie, and everybody has, they're the perfect, it's a democratic household in front of other people. But behind closed doors, when no one else is looking, they are completely a control freak, completely a tyrant at home, among their family in their hidden culture of their home. They will have secret addictions. Third trait is they will have secret addictions. So this might be drinking that maybe only the kids see it, but it could be something less obvious. It could be a shopping addiction. It could be an addiction to the internet. It could be that is hidden from the public, is hidden from everyone else. I knew that my mom was upset because I come home unexpectedly and I would catch her with smoking. She'd be like brushing the air, trying to get it out, and then she would pretend. And I was trained to just pretend like I didn't see anything, definitely not tease her about it or not say anything about it. Just like go, okay, we didn't see that. That didn't happen. There was a lot of that in the way that I grew up, a lot of that, and it filtered right on over into adult life. And this is a little bit of a tangent, but ultimately, the relationship between my family members and I broke up, basically because I could no longer do that. And to them, and this was never spoken, but to them that was a choice, and it was a personal affront. Like, how dare I not keep hidden, not keep pretending not to see. And in fact, the truth was I would have, except for I couldn't. I was breaking down. I was having heart attacks and depression and all this kind of stuff, and I didn't even know why. But so yeah, so hiding all the secret stuff, and then in the family, we all keep it. We all keep the secrets. That's just part of how the whole thing functions. It's part of the illness of it. Choosy in their self-sacrifice. So they will be self-sacrificing, but it's always in a way that will benefit them, and so this is how really the golden child thing develops, is that they'll only have enough of that they'll only have enough energy to give to one child. They're not naturally just generous with their love and affection. It has to be such a concentrated effort for them to even try to do the job, even try to pretend to do the job of being a parent, that they can only do it once. They can't do it across the board. And so, because it's just not a natural state for them, they're trying to manage and do rather than just be. And so that's how they develop this golden child thing. And it's part of their psychology, which is how they have to divide up, and someone has to take all blame for everything, and someone has to get the focus of they have to be the perfect one. And but it would also play out in terms of like a lot of times people will be like volunteers in the hospital, and they'll be there or volunteering for the church, visiting the sick people while their own sick kids are at home alone with no one taking care of them. Or for example, in my case, my mother was a nurse, and my health was my brother and I, our health was completely neglected. Okay, so what I just said was that they're choosy in their self-sacrifice. So they will be, if they're going to make a self-sacrifice, they'll first of all make sure that it's something people can see, so they're not going to be self-sacrificing in private with their kid. Well, what good is that going to do them? Mom only had enough energy to take care of people as a nurse at work, because she had a public persona doing that. She got paid to do that, and so she didn't have the energy, or the desire, or the maternal instincts, the empathy, compassion to take care of her children at home in private where no one could see it. They'll be two-faced, and not to the extent of a sociopath. There's a face that you'll see in private that is never seen when anybody else is around, and the face that you see in public when other people are around is also a face that you really don't see when you're alone with them in private. If I had a little friend over or something, then I might see it. But when it's just the two of us, she didn't need to put on the smiley face and stuff like that. For me, it was so strange because it was so odd when other people were around. It just seemed so phony. But I realized the other people didn't see the others, so it may not have seemed phony to them. But not anything like the sociopath. The sociopath, who is so smooth and slick that he could totally, be just fooling me all the time. My parents weren't ever interested in fooling me. They were not trying to fool me into thinking that they were anything but than who they were. They would just be who they are and then tell me that it was perfect, tell me that it was right. They weren't saying to me, they weren't admitting to being abusive or anything like that. They were just saying that who they were was exactly perfect, and they didn't, Lack of empathy. This is something they share. It's tricky. With the sociopath, they definitely know how they're making you feel, and they're manipulating your feelings. They don't feel it themselves, which is what empathy is, but they definitely know the impact they're going to have with the things that they do and say, what that's going to do to your feelings. The narcissist, I'm not even so sure that they even know that. I'm not so sure. I'm not sure that they have that. I'm not sure that they are nearly as sophisticated as the sociopath in terms of because they're so self-focused that they've never thought about it. They've never thought about what you're feeling or what effect they're going to have on you, other than that they're trying to control you. So they're authoritarian in the way that they are thinking. They really seem to not have much of a clear idea on how they're being perceived, really. And so they're not as popular. They're not popular in the way that the sociopaths are. Sociopaths can win over anybody. An overt narcissist is really off-putting to a lot of people. So, and my parents were not popular people. They didn't have very many friends and things like that. And so, I don't think that they had a good idea on really how to make people like them. My parents would do things to get an immediate effect out of their kids, for instance, without really paying much thought to what long-term effect that was going to have on self-esteem or our relationship or whatever. And when it came down to the end, the thing that happened in the end of the, you know, relationship, when they were taking my soon-to-be ex-husband's side and doing all this stuff against me, it was like they were immediately fighting against something, some fear that they had, some fear that he had triggered, and they were fighting like they were fighting for their lives with no thought about the long-term outcome for our family, for my children, for them in their old age, for any, they really weren't thinking, like, in their minds, they have such a strong sense of entitlement that they could only see as far as the end of their nose. And then when it was over and I didn't die and I was still here, and they just wanted to, like, have everything go back to normal, they just expected me to be able to do that. They just expected that I would come back and just go back to being the daughter that I was. And when I didn't, they completely acted, you know, were like offended and acted like I had betrayed them. So yeah, so they do truly lack empathy, and they have a strong sense of entitlement. And then the last one is victim status. So that's exactly a perfect example. So they'll do something like that, and then their play on it now is that they're the victims, that we have an estranged relationship because I've abandoned them. For what reason, they have no idea. Poor them. The story they would tell would be just so pathetic and so far from the truth. But it's the story they would tell themselves, the story they would tell anybody else. And of course, they can't. They are so tied to that story that it's like oxygen. I mean, they need it. They need the story because they need to believe that they are flawless. They need to believe that they did everything right and they got everything right and that nothing's their fault and that they never make mistakes and all this stuff. And my brother, who was the golden child, is apparently so bought into it too that he has, he's part of feeding that too. And so there's a lot of delusion and stuff that goes along with that. But so the victim status, so they'll do things and then it'll have consequences that would make sense, but when the consequences play out, they act like they're victims of it, So like when they took my soon-to-be ex-husband's side, as he completely betrayed me and did all this really terrible stuff to me, and they got involved in my divorce, helping him. And then when it was over, and they didn't benefit at all. I mean, everything they did just benefited him. It didn't do them any good whatsoever. They were trying to get personal gains out of my divorce, which never worked out for them, which are all things that I'm sure, peppered with like, things that he made them think they could possibly get. And so, when those things didn't work out, then that was more things to be mad at me for. When they're trying to steal from me or manipulate me, didn't work out for them, then they could be mad at me about that too. And so they were completely manipulated and played by my ex-husband. But and now he wants nothing to do with them, of course, but they can't see any of that. So because that would mean that they made a mistake. And so they have to keep making him right, and they have to keep inviting him to things, and they have to keep, just keep compounding the problem because they can't ever regroup. They can't ever go back and go, I did something wrong. Can't ever take responsibility for the things that they do, and therefore they can't grow and they can't learn. And so it's ultimately just super, super frustrating for anyone who's at all healthy, is because they're just absolutely stuck. And if not, or getting worse. Just getting worse, because they are getting worse. Just compounds and compounds. And the more you tell yourself some false story, the sicker and sicker you get. They're just completely, because they were not who they are now, is not who they were when they might have been emotionally abusive, but it was much subtler. They didn't do anything like what the things that they've done in the last decade. Lying about me and stealing from me and things like that. It escalated. So so those are signs of narcissism that are going to be hidden from the outside world. So it's not sociopathy. It's not hidden from you. It's not hidden from it's not something that they're on purpose, you know, trying to fool you, but it's just stuff that the outside world isn't going to see. These are all problematic relationships of inevitable harm, and none of them are very prone to getting better. The prognosis for improvement on these are really, really slim. So because for the reason that I just explained, that in order to fix a problem, you have to first take responsibility for it in terms of, you know, admitting what it is, and, you know, being able to tell yourself what the problem is that you're trying to fix. So that's why growth and stuff like that is really stunted for them, and it's super frustrating for anyone who's at all healthy. All right. Thanks a lot, you guys. Please subscribe and give me a thumbs up, and I will talk with you again really, really soon. All right. Bye-bye.